So the final lecture about important compounds in our body is going to focus on proteins, and then I will have one slide on reactive oxygen species, which are also very important. So as we know, amino acids are going to be the building blocks of proteins, and humans only have L amino acids in proteins. So humans have L amino acids, bacteria have D amino acids. Do not confuse with sugars. Because those are D sugars. So that's a special note. Don't confuse the two. So we have L amino acids, bacteria have D amino acids. The nitrogen of amino acids is going to increase the solubility of these molecules in water. Right? So here we're just showing a few. We have alanine, L-alanine, and D-alanine. And again, it just depends on what side you have that nitrogen in this case. It's not a sugar, it's an amino acid. And so for humans, we have it on the left side. Bacteria will have it on the right side. And then also showing is a neurotransmitter, gamma amino butyrate. Now, one thing we have are nitrogen bases. Nitrogen can form hydrogen bonds. Remember, hydrogen bonds are dipole-dipole, and they have to either be with oxygen or nitrogen. We have purines, and these are going to be our adenine and guanine. And then we have our pyrimidine. And these are going to be our thiamine, cytosine, and uracil. And then we have our pyridines. And these are our vitamins, such as nicotinic acid and our pyridoxine. Which is vitamin B6, the only vitamin that can be water soluble that can be toxic. And of course, this comes from vitamin niacin. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about nucleosides. Nucleosides are basically a base plus a sugar. And so here we have our sugars. We have our ribose, which on that 2 carbon has an OH group. We have our deoxyribose, which on that 2 carbon has lost that oxygen, so it becomes hydrogen. This makes DNA more stable. Just having that simple change. And this makes RNA very unstable, which is important for the function of the molecules. DNA is supposed to make sure we have fidelity within our code. RNA is only supposed to be made for a short period of time as needed by what we need for our proteins. Now, a nucleoside is when you have a base and this gets bound to a sugar. And so a nucleotide would be a base plus a sugar plus 1 or more up to 3 phosphates. Right, so if you add this phosphate, now you're at a nucleotide. All right, so some important molecules in the cell, of course, is going to be ATP, which is going to be the principal form of chemical energy. or a purine. The adenine is at A. So the adenine, which makes up DNA and RNA, actually is the same one that makes up ATP. And we also have something called cyclic AMP. The A, again, is adenine. And C stands for cyclic. Here we see we're forming this cyclic or enclosed form. And cyclic AMP, so here's the AMP with the phosphate group here. This is going to be important in signaling. And it's going to be very important. We're going to talk about glucagon signaling, epinephrine signaling, and they're all going to use cyclic AMP as part of the signal transduction. All right, so here we have tautomers. Tautomers are going to be alternate forms containing nitrogen. We had isomers for our sugars, so here we have our tautomers for our nitrogen-containing compounds. So we're going to, for example, have uric acid is going to be a tautomer with uric acid and uric acid with urate. So in the kidney, you're going to have precipitation of uric acid and this is going to give you kidney stones. And if you have uric acid in your blood, this is going to become urate crystals, and this can get deposit and lead to gout. And then finally, I just want to talk about free radicals. Of course, these are not proteins, but these are also very important in the body. Free radicals means basically free, exists, independent, meaning not bound to anything, in a solution, meaning our blood, our cytosol. And they're going to, for example, be very attracted to our lipid membranes. Now, two very important lipid membranes in our cell is going to be our cell membrane, keeps up the integrity of the cell, and the other, of course, is going to be the mitochondrial lipid membrane because that also is very important for making sure the cell survives. If you lose integrity of your mitochondria, your cell will undergo apoptosis and die. Now, free radicals basically they're going to have a single electron in an outer orbit. And so these radicals can be made by irradiation or other means. Simple biochemical reactions in our body can generate free radicals. We have an electron transport chain. Oxygen has to be the final electron acceptor. If it picks up an oxygen before it gets to the point where it's supposed to, it can become a free radical. And that's how you can generate free radicals in your mitochondria at a high level because oxygen is there and you're moving around electrons. So these free radicals, we have our hydroxide radical and our hydrogen radical. They're going to cause membrane damage, DNA damage, mitochondria damage, lipid peroxidation. Anywhere you have a lipid, a fat, you're going to get damage. They can also damage proteins. So they have many effects on your cells.